My wife and I spent 1 week in Monastir in Tunisia, but to be perfectly honest, we were a bit worried about some of the hassles we could face, and I will talk about these throughout this video. My name is Ryan, my wife Emily and I are the Snail Travelers. One of my biggest fears about Monastir was the journey getting there from Tunis. Our original plan was to take the train to Sousse and then another train to Monastir, but we found out you have to buy tickets at the station and they can't be purchased online, and that the trains are often significantly delayed or canceled altogether. The other option was to take a shared taxi called a louage, but a few Tunisian people warned us against this because they said the drivers can drive recklessly. We were also nervous about navigating through the chaotic louage stations. Well, after trying out some of the louage taxis during our 2 weeks in Tunis, we came to the conclusion that they aren't all that bad. So we decided to take a louage from Tunis to Monastir, and it was fine. At the louage station in Tunis, we bought our tickets at the ticket window. The prices are displayed on the window, so we didn't have to worry about getting ripped off. And then we walked through the station until we found the sign hanging from the ceiling with our destination of Monastir. A van had pulled out to go to Monastir right when we got to the correct section of the station, so we just missed that one. But the next van filled up in less than 5 minutes, and off we went. It cost less than $5 for the 2-hour journey, and it turned out there was no reason for us to worry about this. And we used the louage system to do our day trips during our time in Monastir, as you will see later in this video. When we were looking on Airbnb for a place to stay, we found an apartment that looked terrific, and it was priced at $35 per night and had terrific reviews. And with such a low price, we worried that there might be something wrong with this apartment. When we got there and took a look at the building, it wasn't in great shape, and we thought maybe we were going to regret our decision to stay here. We went up the stairs and found the apartment. One of the cats left an unwelcome gift right outside the door, and I won't show you a picture of what that was. But then we unlocked the door and went inside, and we were absolutely amazed at what we saw on the inside. It wasn't the newest apartment we've ever stayed in, but it was absolutely the biggest apartment we have ever stayed in, and one of the nicest too. One of the best features of this apartment was the absolutely massive balcony overlooking the marina that was filled with boats. And if that wasn't enough, the upstairs bedroom was enormous, and it had its own balcony also overlooking the marina. Unfortunately, the restaurant below the apartment played loud music even when there was nobody there. But other than that, this place had everything we needed, and we had no reason to worry about it. We get just a little nervous about getting lost, especially when we are carrying our backpacks and trying to find our accommodation. And we did get lost trying to find our apartment because we didn't realize we had to walk through some shops to get there. But otherwise, getting lost can actually be quite fun. It's part of the travel adventure experience and is a great way to discover unexpected things. Here in Tunisia, almost every city has a medina, which is the old part of the city with narrow alleyways and usually inside the ancient city walls. It can be almost impossible to navigate through a medina the first time, and we hit dead ends quite often. In Sousse, for example, we plan to walk in through the gate, walk all the way through, then reverse our path back to the beginning and go out the gate the same way we came in. But the actual path involved some wrong turns. I think we ended up backtracking, made some other wrong turns, but eventually made it up to where we were trying to go. But like I said, getting lost is part of the fun. And another place where it is actually fun to get lost is inside the historical fortresses. This one here in Monastir and another similar fort in Sousse, except just a little smaller and maybe slightly better condition. I can't tell you how many times we became disoriented as we were exploring around these fortresses, but somehow we found our way around and made it to the top of the main towers in both of the forts. Both of these fortresses date back to the Middle Ages and were built as protection from invaders. It only cost a few dollars to enter, and exploring these fortresses was one of the highlights of our time in Monastir. We spent 7 full days in Monastir and weren't sure if there would be enough to do to keep us busy. In Monastir itself, I would say there was a moderate number of activities available. I already showed you the Rabat of Monastir, or the fortress. There is also an interesting mausoleum honoring the first president of Tunisia after it became independent from France in 1956. There is a okay beach here in Monastir. It's also interesting to walk around the marina. The Medina in Monastir wasn't our favorite. It wasn't as pedestrian-friendly or as interesting as others we have visited in Tunisia, such as the one in Sousse that I already showed you. All in all, we think one day is a completely sufficient amount of time to experience Monastir. Let me talk more about our day trip to Sousse, which we decided to get to by taking the commuter train from Monastir. We had mixed experiences with the trains in Tunis, so we weren't sure if taking the train over a louage would be the right decision. And with so many people waiting on the platform, we thought the train might be too crowded. But it was a big train, and it was a comfortable ride. Our favorite experience in Sousse was visiting the Archaeological Museum, which has an absolutely stunning collection of mosaics and other artifacts on display from multiple periods of Tunisian history. Again, we think one day was a sufficient amount of time to visit Sousse. Our next day trip was to the fantastic city of Kairouan, about an hour and a half from Monastir. A visit to the Grand Mosque is an absolute necessity, and it is one of the oldest places of worship in the Islamic world, dating back more than 1,300 years. It is believed that 7 pilgrimages to this mosque is the equivalent of 1 pilgrimage to Mecca, making it the 4th holiest city in Islam after Mecca, Medina, and Jerusalem. There are several interesting mausoleums scattered around the city, and of all the medinas we visited during our time in Tunisia, this was our favorite. It was active but not overwhelming. It had a beauty that is unlike many of the other medinas we have visited. There are several mosques scattered around, and we had a fantastic time just wandering around. It was less touristy, and we enjoyed observing everyday life here. We spent one day in Kairouan, but we could have easily spent more time here without getting bored. And our final day trip was to El Jem, where we first visited yet another fabulous museum, then had lunch, and the best thing about lunch was what was directly in front of the restaurant. Wait, are we really in Tunisia? Did we somehow teleport over to Rome? Nope, this is in Tunisia, and it is the 2nd largest Roman Coliseum that is in existence today. As soon as we walked into the arena, we were absolutely amazed at what we saw. We had visited the Coliseum in Rome just a few months earlier, but this was a completely different experience, much less crowded, much more intimate, and it cost under the equivalent of just $4 to visit. And after our time there, we decided to take the train back from El Jem to Sousse. The train was so crowded that I couldn't get any footage of the inside, and this experience confirmed that traveling by louage beats the train for comfort. So, did we get bored during our time in Monastir? No, as you can see, we stayed very busy, and there was no reason to worry about not having enough to do. One thing we worried about, just a little bit, not too much, was whether or not the food would be too spicy for us. We can enjoy a small amount of spiciness in our food, but not to the point where our mouth is on fire. Well, everything turned out okay. The restaurants that are familiar with tourists know that foreigners don't always like spicy food, and they usually ask spicy or not spicy when ordering a meal. We did go to one restaurant where we saw pasta with tomato sauce that looked good, so we ordered it too. Well, it turned out it wasn't tomato sauce, it was harissa sauce, which is very spicy. But all in all, we enjoyed the food here in Tunisia, and I'll be talking more about our favorite Tunisian food in a future video. When we would walk through the Medina, some of the shopkeepers would invite us into their shop, or we would meet people who would want to guide us to a carpet shop. But it was never aggressive. Nobody ever grabbed us or forced us into their shop. Nothing to worry about. Alright, our next video will also be from Tunisia. I'll put it up here when it's ready. Here's our previous video from Tunis, and be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future content. Thanks for traveling with us.